She warned me not to expect anything in her will. I responded by pulling my $150K investment. 48 hours later, she was at my door with a handwritten apology. I'm 32, and I must have read the text 3 times before I could process it. My mom had just delivered the ultimate guilt-laced blow. Since you never help, don't expect a dime when I'm gone. The words seared through me, each syllable stinging like acid. I was sitting in my home office, surrounded by the quarterly reports from 3 companies I'd built from scratch over the past 10 years. There was a bitter irony in it. I was managing a portfolio valued at over $2 million. Yet my own mother believed I didn't lift a finger to help. The backstory wasn't complicated, but it was emotionally loaded. 2 years earlier, she had come to me with her long-standing dream, opening a boutique bakery. It had been her goal for years, especially after my dad passed away from cancer. The insurance payout hadn't been enough to sustain her and also fund the dream she clung to. That's where I came in. I didn't just write a check and disappear. I invested $150,000 of my own money, helped her scout the right location, brought in my trusted contractor who offered her a deep discount, and even set up her entire point-of-sale system. For 6 months straight, I gave up my weekends to be there. I helped her organize inventory, trained her on business software, and developed her entire social media presence. The business exploded faster than we'd imagined. Within 8 months, she had steady profits and a waiting list for custom cakes. I was proud of what we'd accomplished, proud of her and proud of the work we put in together. But somewhere along the way, things started to shift. She began making subtle remarks about how I was too caught up in my own life to care about the family. When I missed her birthday dinner due to a critical deal I was closing in Chicago, she iced me out for a week. When I couldn't help her move a heavy piece of equipment during a particularly bad stretch in my business, she threw passive-aggressive comments about how successful people forget their roots. But the breaking point came 3 weeks ago when my younger brother got himself into another mess. He'd borrowed money from her again and couldn't pay her back. She didn't confront him. Instead, she expected me to step in and cover for him. I told her I'd already loaned him money twice that year, and he hadn't repaid a dime. That's when she accused me of turning my back on the family. What followed was a barrage of emotional blackmail. Texts about how she gave everything for her kids, voicemails lamenting how disappointed Dad would be in the man I'd become, and endless jabs about how money had corrupted me. So, when I received her latest text, the one where she told me not to expect anything from her estate, something in me snapped. Not because I cared about the inheritance, but because it completely dismissed the time, money, and effort I'd poured into her dream. I sent back a single word: understood. Then I opened my laptop and started making calls. First, I reached out to my attorney. Thankfully, our agreement was airtight. The $150,000 had been structured as a convertible loan, with detailed terms for early withdrawal. She'd signed it, though I doubted she ever actually read the fine print. According to the agreement, I had the right to call in the full loan amount with 72 hours notice if there was a material shift in our business relationship, and her message certainly qualified. Then I called my accountant to discuss the tax consequences of the withdrawal. It would be a little complex, but nothing I couldn't handle. By the end of the day, I had sent her a formal notice through my lawyer. The full $150,000 was due within 72 hours or I'd take legal action to recover the investment, including interest and associated fees, a total that had climbed to nearly $180,000 with returns factored in. I knew she didn't have that kind of liquid cash. The bakery was profitable but not nearly liquid enough to meet that demand. Most of her money was tied up in equipment, inventory, and her lease. For 2 full days, my phone was dead silent. No texts, no calls, no emotional blackmail. And for a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. On the 3rd day, I was back in my office reviewing contracts when I noticed a car pull into the driveway. It was my mom's old Honda. She didn't get out right away. I watched her sit in the driver's seat for nearly 10 minutes before she finally stepped out, looking smaller than I remembered. Her hair, usually done with care, was tied back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing the same clothes I'd seen her in earlier that week. In her hands was a letter. She asked if she could come inside, and I quietly stepped aside. We sat on the couch, the same couch where we'd mapped out her bakery plans just 2 years earlier. Without a word, she handed me the letter. Her handwriting was shaky, nothing like the confident cursive I remembered from birthday cards and school notes. The letter spanned 3 pages, but the message was clear. She was sorry. She admitted she'd taken her grief out on me. She acknowledged all the work I'd done for the business and confessed that she never properly thanked me for it. She even admitted that, in some deep and unspoken way, she was envious of my success. She said she'd convinced herself that because I was financially independent, I no longer needed her, and that terrified her. The guilt trips, the manipulation, they weren't about money. They were her way of clinging to the last threads of a relationship she felt slipping away. As I sat there listening to her read the words aloud, something inside of me shifted. The anger I'd been holding on to, the resentment and disbelief, all of it started to melt away, replaced by something far more complicated. I told her I appreciated the apology, and I meant it. But I also needed her to hear one thing loud and clear. My success hadn't made me cold. It had made me fiercely protective of my boundaries. When people tried to guilt or emotionally manipulate me, it didn't pull me closer, it drove me away. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. Then she asked, voice trembling, if there was any way to fix this, to go back to how things were before. I thought about it. The truth was, I didn't want to go back. I wanted something better. So I made her an offer. I would forgive the debt, all $180,000 of it, but only under certain conditions. First, she had to acknowledge that our relationship was now between 2 adults, not a mother who could guilt-trip her child into submission. Second, if she needed help, she had to ask directly, no more passive-aggressive digs or emotional traps. Third, we needed regular, honest conversations about what we both expected from this relationship. She agreed immediately, but I wasn't finished. I told her the 4th condition was non-negotiable. She had to have a direct and honest conversation with my brother. His financial chaos was not my responsibility, and I refused to let her use me as a pressure valve for his poor choices. If she wanted to support him, fine, but she had to stop using our relationship as collateral. She sat silently for a long time after that, then finally asked if I believed we could rebuild what we'd lost. I told her I wasn't sure, but I was willing to try, if she was willing to do the work. Update 1. 3 weeks later, she called to give me an update. She'd had the conversation with my brother, and it hadn't gone well. He accused her of taking my side and stormed out. But she didn't waver. She told him she loved us both but wouldn't enable his choices anymore. She also started seeing a grief counselor, not because I told her to, but because she realized on her own that she needed help. She said she'd started to understand how much of her behavior over the last 2 years had been rooted in her struggle to process Dad's death. The bakery was thriving. She'd hired a part-time assistant and was even considering a second location. But this time, when she talked about business, she asked for my input instead of expecting my investment. We started having weekly coffee meetings again, and for the first time in years, our conversations felt balanced. Like 2 adults sharing their lives. Update 2. 2 months after that, my brother reached out. He didn't apologize, but he did admit he finally understood why I had been frustrated with the constant requests for help. He asked if we could reset things, and I agreed to meet him for coffee. During our conversation, he revealed something I hadn't known. Mom had been covering more than just his emergencies. She'd been regularly supplementing his income, rent, groceries, even entertainment. No wonder he never learned to manage his own life. I suggested he speak with a financial advisor. Surprisingly, he agreed. I didn't offer to pay, and he didn't ask. It was a small step, but an important one. Meanwhile, Mom and I restructured our business arrangement entirely. I became a silent partner with clearly defined ownership and input on major decisions. She retained full operational control, but I received quarterly updates. Felt healthier, more professional, more sustainable. Update 3. 6 months after that original confrontation, our family dynamic looked nothing like it had before, in the best way possible. Mom made real progress in therapy. She stopped using guilt to communicate. My brother got his finances in check and hadn't asked for money in 4 months. And the strangest part? My relationship with both of them was better than it had been before. That ugly text message, the one that could have ended everything, forced all of us to deal with the hard stuff we'd been avoiding. Cleared the air. Mom's bakery was doing so well, she was looking at franchising. But this time, she didn't just assume I'd jump in. She came prepared, business plan, projections, terms, like a real partner. I realized that what had once felt like a betrayal had actually been a turning point. I'd been ready to walk away, and in doing so, I'd made space for something real. I even framed the apology letter she brought that day, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that even broken things can be repaired, if both people are willing to do the hard work. That original text wasn't really about inheritance or money. It was a desperate attempt to maintain control in a relationship where she no longer felt needed. My response called her bluff, and made both of us confront what we truly wanted. That $150,000 I was ready to lose? It ended up buying something far more valuable. A real relationship with my mother, built on honesty, respect, and adult boundaries.